Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Knockout Analysis presented by Cronio Media. This is your host, Ethan Chronister, joined by your co-host, Mr. Whit Barnes. Today's episode, we will be talking about UFC Fight Night in Seattle, Washington. We're going to address the ginormous elephant in the room. Yes, we have missed the last 2 weeks of filming. No, we were not quarreling as partners. That is not how we operate here at Knockout Analysis presented by Cronio Media. We simply were busy. I am a 4 to 5 night a week training MMA fighter. Mr. Barnes has newfound employment and an old lady at home. We have other shit that we have to do. Mr. Barnes had some stuff going on in his own life that he had to take care of, and that's fine. That's part of life. That being said, we didn't fucking miss a thing. Those cards were ass. That being said, we're going to move right into Michael Chiesa retirement fight week, otherwise known as UFC Fight Night in Seattle, Washington. We're going to jump right into it with the first fight of the night, which is Alexia Tainara facing off against Bruna Brazil in a ranked strawweight women's matchup. Tainara holds the 13th ranked spot in the division. She houses a 13-1 record. She is very good on the ground. She's a Contender Series alum. She won her UFC debut via submission of Molly McCann and sent McCann into retirement. She beat Luma Lookierin-Bomi in her second fight, 2-0 in the UFC, facing off against Bruna Brazil. Brazil coming off of a loss in her last fight, but she did win her fight before that. I don't think that there's much to talk about with this one, if I'm being quite honest. Go ahead and give me Tainara to win this fight by first round submission, make her 3-0 in the UFC. Maybe get ourselves a little higher in the rankings.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the first fight in the Cronio Media comeback, man, we have a rematch. Yes, this fight has happened before. It is the reason why Tainara has a 1, and I think it's going to go the opposite direction. Bruna Brazil, she's a difficult cookie to finish. In her early days, she has got submitted a few times, but in the UFC, she has not been finished. Yeah, it's been mostly against strikers, Wayne Kong, Shi Ming, Molly McCann, Luma Lookierin-Bomi, as we like to say on this channel. Caitlin Souza is a respectable grappler. I don't think that Bruna Brazil is going to get subbed, but I think this fight's going to decision like most women's fights in the prelims do. I think Tainara is going to get the upper hand here. I don't really care about the fighting nerds for Bruna Brazil. She has been win one, lose one pretty much since she's been in the UFC, but I think she's going to have her first 2-fight losing streak in her career. Give me Tainara by decision here.
That'll move us into the next one, where we have Ricky Simon facing off against Adrian Yanez. We have Mr. Simon with a 22-7 record, and Yanez houses a 17-6 record. This is an unranked matchup. 10-6 UFC record for Ricky. He's coming off of a loss in his last fight. He's 2-3 in his last 5. Not the best record in the world, but he does have some decent losses. He's lost to Mario Bautista, Vinicius Oliveira, Barcelos, call it what you will. He's got a 20-5 record, 21-5 record now, so obviously he's no scrub. That being said, his opponent, Mr. Yanez, houses a 17-6 record. In the UFC, he's 6-3. In his last 5, he's also 2-3. His last fight, he lost to Daniel Marcos. He's lost to Jonathan Martinez and Witt's Pookie Bear Rob Font. Those are not quite as good a losses in my opinion. So I'm going to take who I think to be the better, more experienced fighter in this one. Give me Ricky Simone here, and I think it's a decision. Probably an ugly one, maybe even split.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love this matchup. This should definitely be above Michael Chiesa's retirement fight, which I think is one of the worst fights on this card. And from here going forward, I think damn near every fight besides the women's flyweight matchup should be above that fight. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. This is a beautiful, beautiful fight. Two guys that were formerly high-level prospects in this division. Ricky Simone, I think, has looked a lot better as of late. Brandon Barcelos was a very competitive fight. Cameron Smotherman, he smothered Cameron Smotherman. And Snow Leopard Basharat, who is, for whatever reason, no longer in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Yeah, he was a massive underdog there. He landed the overhand going into a takedown and folded Javid like a chair that you unfolded whenever you were unfolding chairs at church as a young boy. So, Adrian Yanez, I question his chin. He's a very exciting striker. Daniel Marcos is able to cage hug him. And his last defeat, Jonathan Martinez, Ronfont. Jonathan Martinez, I don't know what the hell he's doing right now. He needs to fight again. I think that Salvador fight had to have been a short notice replacement type of thing, because that dude does not have the most pretty looking record. Give me Ricky Simone, man. I think he might be able to land it overhand and get the knockout here, but I'm in agreement with Kron on this one. I'm going to take Mr. Ricky Simone by decision out of American Top Team Portland.
That's what that dude's name was. I couldn't remember. I was literally going to text you the other day. I was thinking about, I kept confusing him with Daniel Santos or whatever that dude's name is. The guy that was 17-0 and then lost to Montel Jackson. That's him.
Man, Daniel Marcos, man. Shit.
That'll move us into the next one, where we have a mythical matchup of Navajo Sterling out of City Kickboxing and Bruno Lopez out of No One Gives a Shit. The Brazilian Cowboy has met his reckoning, I fear, with the matchup that he has just been given. Navajo Sterling, as previously mentioned, in the City Kickboxing gym with Adesanya and the chef guy, whatever his name is.
We come from a land down under.
Yeah, that
Alexander.
chef guy. But yeah, Bruno Lopez coming off of a first round loss in his last fight via left hook knockout from Dustin Jacoby. Before that, he won 3 straight fights in a row. This is going to be his third fight in the UFC. Boy, did he ever get a shit draw in that one. Let's look at his 2 losses. Dustin Jacoby, UFC veteran, and Brinson Ribeiro. And he lost to him in the Contender Series. So, not a great... I mean, the Jacoby loss is a little better, but not a great loss on the Ribeiro part. That being said, he's facing off against Navajo Sterling, who, as I'm sure Mr. Barnes will mention whenever he gets his turn to talk on this matter, has yet to finish anybody in the UFC. So he's looking for it hard. Very, very hard. No pause. He beat Tukatokos. He beat Ivan Arslan. He beat Rodolfo Bellato. And in the Contender Series, he beat Philip Latu via second round knockout and was awarded his contract. Has yet to lose in his pro career, and I don't think this Brazilian fraud with the glass chin is going to do it here. Give me Navajo Sterling, and I'm going to pick him to make his first finish by third round. Smash him out with elbow, ground and pound, TKO.
Yeah, I mean, Kron said it before I could. Bruno Lopez is a glass chin, especially against Brennan Ribeiro, explosive and long fighter, no pause. I have respect for Brenison Ribeiro. I think he's going to be around for a little bit longer. He's been given another tough matchup here. Brenison Ribeiro has against Yukayev. I think he's a lamb to the slaughter on that one. Off the topic, and I'm going to go off the topic again, man. Brenison Ribeiro against Magomed Gadzhiesulov. Why the hell? Shit, man. Why the hell did Magomed Gadzhiesulov get cut after 2 fights whenever he was the one that pieced up and dominated Jose Daniel Medina, who got infinite opportunities in the UFC? He got 4 fights. How come the guy that beat him got 2? You know, that's just something that doesn't make sense. But I'll go back onto the road here. Bruno Lopez, I didn't respect him in that fight against Gadzhiesulov. It was a cage-hugging performance. He didn't really do a whole lot on the feet. Every time the fight was in space, and every time they were in the pocket, Gadzhiesulov won the exchanges. All the strikes that Bruno landed were on the fence, and it was a very boring fight. And I'm very happy Dustin Jacoby went out there and folded him like the lawn chair that he is. And he was another thing that pissed me off. After the Gadzhiesulov fight, he was walking around in this ridiculously large cowboy hat, emoting like he was one of the greatest fighters ever. And it really ruined my night to see that. I'm like, bro, what have you done? You just cage hugged a guy. You didn't dominate a guy. You cage hugged him, and you got pieced up whenever you guys were in open space. I don't think this guy has a lot of skills outside of power, if you could say that. Now, Sterling, I think this is opportunity meeting preparation for him. He's went out there. You know, Phil Latu, he recently fought for, I think it was the LFA belt. It doesn't really say here on the ESPN site, but I think he fought for the LFA belt and he lost. But Tuka Tokos, Ivan Arslan, Rodolfo Bellato, not guys I put a lot of respect on, but they're wins. His last 2 fights, specifically against Bellato and Arslan, he was dominating him on the feet, and then he shot for the takedown, dominated on the ground. He kind of gassed by the third. I think his team will be like, hey, man, why are you wrestling guys? You don't have to wrestle. Why are you doing it? Is it for shits and giggles? I think Navajo.
Go ahead.
What's up, Carl? I think Navajo's going to go out there. I think he's going to knock out Mr. Lopez with his large-ass cowboy hat. I think he's going to knock him out in the first round. I think it's time for him to show people who he really is, and he is the white 1,000-yard stare, Israel Adesanya.
That'll move us directly into the next fight, where we will be looking at another women's matchup. I do believe we are going into 12th ranked Casey O'Neill facing off against 14th ranked Gabriela Fernandez. This is a battle in the women's flyweight division of the gatekeepers, if you will, the lowest ranked of the ranked. She's coming off of the Australian. Miss O'Neill's coming off of a win in her last fight against Luana Santos. Before that, she lost to Ariane Lipski de Silva and Jennifer Maia. So she's 1-2 in her last 3, 5-2 in the UFC overall. Facing off against Gabriela Fernandez, coming off of 3 straight wins. Probably best known at this point for being the one women's fighter that has defeated Wang Kong. She clubbed and subbed her, I believe, is exactly what happened in that one. After that, she beat Julia Stolarienko, who has a horrendous record, so I don't hold any merit to that one at all. But it looks like momentum's riding high for both of these fighters. I think in women's MMA, if you bet on a Brazilian, you have a 50-50 shot, so I'm going to do that here. Give me Gabriela Fernandez to win the ugliest split decision you've ever seen in all your days.
I mean, man, this is just one of those things with, especially the UFC, that didn't make any sense. How is Gabriela Fernandez going to finish, even if it was a fluke? How's she going to finish one of the most anticipated prospects and then fight a fighter that was, 11-9-1 at the time? Meanwhile, Wang Kong she got a ranked opponent after that, which Lipsky da Silva is now in the PFL. She was a 15th ranked strawweight fighter at the time, or flyweight. And then she went on to get another win. I just don't really understand it. Casey O'Neill, Australian, younger, Extreme Couture. You know what they do there. Sean Strickland's gym, Chris Curtis's, Dan Ige. All those guys, they kind of fight the same. It's like a sparring match for them. I don't think they do cardio. I just think they do a light spar for their cardio. They're both, Ariana Lipsky da Silva did beat Casey O'Neill. I put respect on it, but I think this is Gabriel Fernandez, every Brazilian women's fighter's last name is Santos. I think this is her fight to lose. Yeah, the odds are very close. She is the slight underdog, but I would go with her. And like I said, this is the first time I brought up odds today. Do not bet on MMA. Women's MMA. Women's MMA. Do not bet on it. Give me Gabriel Fernandez by decision. I think it could go either way. Zero confidence.
That'll move us into the next one where we will have 8th ranked Marcin Tybura facing off against unranked Tyrell Fortune. Tyrell Fortune is coming in on his UFC debut, being dealt quite a tough hand, having to face off against Tybura in his first fight in the UFC. It does appear that he has had a title in a couple different promotions before making it to the UFC. He has 11 knockout wins. He is coming into this fight at 35 years of age, facing off against Tybura, UFC veteran, UFC legend. He is 14-9 in the UFC altogether. Has some huge wins in the UFC. Has some unfortunate losses in the UFC. But again, he is a veteran, and he has now essentially blossomed into the role of gatekeeper of the heavyweight division. If anyone wants to make it into the top 10 the heavyweight division, you have to beat a guy like Marcin Tybura, or else you're not going to make it very far. So as long as he stays in the UFC, he'll probably stay right around this role. But I believe that he's the better man in this fight, so I'm going to take him in this one. But I don't think there's a finish involved. I think this is a decision, and I'll give it unanimously to Marcin Tybura.
Yeah, Marcin Tybura. Kron pretty much hit the nail on the head on a lot of aspects. Marcin Tybura, gatekeeper. If you can't run through him, you're not going to run through anybody else above him, because Marcin Tybura has pretty much fought everybody above him. You know, Ante Delia, I think that was like kind of a revenge fight for Delia after he took a long hiatus due to an injury TKO way back in the day against Marcin. And I'm a huge fan of Marcin, bro. He has swag, and I just kind of respect him for what he is. But I'm going to take a deep look into Tyrell Fortune. Tyrell Fortune, he beat Oklahoma's own Myron Dennis. Don't know him personally, but I know Myron Dennis is Oklahoma's own. Tony Lopez, that guy was around 52, 51 years old. He's had like 70 career fights. That dude's older than Bat Pussy, and pardon my voice crack, but he's older than Bat Pussy. And I don't even really know a lot about Demorio Dennis. Whatever. This guy, what I'm trying to say is, hasn't fought the highest level of competition. I think Marcin Tybura has fought the best in the world for a long period of time. 40 years old doesn't mean a lot in the heavyweight division. I'm in agreement with Cronin here on the outcome. I think Tybura is going to win. I think it's going to be a decision. I think it's going to be an ugly fight, and everyone on Twitter is going to say it was very low level, but either way, this is a short notice opportunity for Fortune. Tibera was supposed to fight Walter Walker, and it is what it is. Give me Tibera by decision.
That'll move us directly into the next one, where we have Chase the Gooner Hooper facing off against Lance Gibson Jr. Lance Gibson Jr. coming off of a loss in his UFC debut to none other than Bobby King Green late last year. His record in the UFC is now 0-1. He had a 5-1 stint in Bellator, which is fair enough. He fights out of his dad's gym. His dad is his head coach. Chase Hooper, coming off of a loss in his last fight to Alexander Hernandez. That kind of shot Alexander Hernandez into a little bit of a groove there. But in the UFC, he's 4-1 in his last 5. Overall, he's 8-4. Chase Hooper, I believe, is going to be looking for vengeance in this one, as he got knocked out by a guy he probably beats 9 out of 10 times, as I'm sure Whit would probably agree with me. Lance Gibson Jr., not very confident in his ability. You lost to Bobby Green, and to me that holds no merit, and that means you're an absolute scrub lord, scum of the earth beetle. Give me Chase the Gooner Hooper to goon on this man and win this fight by second round submission.
Yeah. Chase Hooper. He is just as big of a favorite against Lance Gibson as he was against Alexander Hernandez, for those people that pay attention to the odds, and I think that's very interesting. And Alexander Hernandez came out of the post-fight press conference saying, yeah, this guy's really flat-footed. We wanted to attack him. We wanted to use volume to attack him, and that's pretty much what they did. I think if Chase found a way to get this to the ground instead of experimenting on the feet, that he would have had a massive advantage like he does against a lot of guys. But you look at Chase's wins, old-ass Jim Miller, Clay Guida in his last ever UFC fight, Slava Borshev, who's proven to have no grappling, Jordan Levin. Jordan Levin's a decent fighter. He's been submitted by guys that are high level in the grappling department, and he recently moved down a division. I mean, that's concerning, no matter how you look at it. Lance Gibson does train with his dad. I think he's a decent fighter. I remember watching this fight and messaging Kron, and we were by the end of this fight with Bobby King Green, I was like, damn, I really don't know who won that fight. No matter who wins, I'm just be like, all right. But Lance Gibson wasn't as big as an underdog as he was promoted as. He was around a plus 200 something. I think it's about the same here. He's never been submitted. Yeah, he has been knocked out in Bellator. I think this fight's going to play out much closer than the odds suggest, but I'm going to take Chase Hooper. I wouldn't put money on Chase Hooper, considering his last fight. I think he can control him. I think he could potentially get the sub and look like an even bigger favorite. But sometimes, especially when the competition you're facing is so old and decrepit, you're just as good as your last fight is. So give me Chase Hooper. I think it's going to be a decision. I wouldn't put money on it either way.
Going to move us into the next one. That will move us to Ignacio Bahamondes facing off against Tafik Musayev. This is a fight that is near and dear to Mr. Barnes' heart, I fear, as his name suggests. We have 17-6 Ignacio Bahamondes with his 6-3 UFC record, coming off of a loss in his last fight to Fiziev. Facing off against Tafik Musayev, who previously mentioned is coming from Rizin, is where he had his most success. He did suffer a defeat in his UFC debut against Miktabek Orlabai, who is Neanderthal Khabib. That's a great loss, if there is such thing, because Orlabai is flying up the rankings. He will soon be fighting for some heavy odds. That being said, I believe, based off of the records that I'm seeing, I think that Bahamondes has a little bit better experience in this regard. I'm going to go ahead and not confidently take Bahamondes to win this fight. I don't see any kind of finish in this one, so give me a submission here. Or not a submission, a decision here.
Yeah, Ignacio trains with Bilal Muhammad. I think it might have been. It was either Ignacio's little brother,
Repeat
Nacho
that.
Libre. He trains with Bilal Muhammad.
Give me Tafik Messiah by first round knockout.
Yeah. Ignacio, Nacho Libre, it's not his nickname, but if y'all see Nacho Libre, y'all already know what I'm saying. But Nacho Libre, Bahamondes, trains with Bilal Muhammad. It might have even been his little brother. I'm not certain on that. That Bilal Muhammad said, yeah, bro, it's like the Epstein files without the sex. You know, that might have been the same, within the same bloodline or lineage. Bilal Bilal says this guy is like one of the most unique strikers. You know, he's out of Chile. It's a unique South American country, and he does have good wins. Manuel Torres, great win. His 2 submissions are against great opponents that have aged well. Jalen Turner recently came out of retirement and finished. Edson Barboza, Rongju went out there and went to absolute war and beat Cody Steele. He beat Fraudson Hubbard. You know, he's on a 2-fight win streak. But I think that's a fact about Nacho Libre Bahamondes is that he is 0-1 against guys from Azerbaijan. And this is his second straight fight against a guy that's from Azerbaijan. And Tafik Musayev, he's much better than guys give him credit for. Kron pretty much hit the nail on the head. Oralbai, he's fighting at welterweight now. He beat Hermanson. I think he beat Chris Curtis, yeah. In a non-entertaining fight, but a dominant performance, you could say. I'm not going to put a lot of disrespect on Tofik, just like Kron, for that kind of loss, because I think it's a very tough debut. And yeah, this is a short notice fight for Ignacio that I think everybody should know. Tofik was supposed to fight Samuel Sanchez, I believe. I think this fight's going to take place on the feet. I don't think that there's going to be a takedown. I don't think Tafik's going to take him down and get put in a triangle like Jalen Turner did. It's going to be a kickboxing fight, which plays right into Tafik's hands. He's going to be ready for whatever Bahamondes is going to throw at him. And Tofik, based off his 18 knockout victories in his 22 fights, proves they can do that. This is professional MMA, you know, anything can happen. And I'm going to take him. I think he's going to get, I want to say he's going to get a knockout, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think Ignacio is decently high level. He's never been finished in his career. I think he will get knocked down, but give me Tafik Musayev by a 29-28. Obviously, I think the value is on him. He is like a plus 250 or something like that, like plus 260. So give me him. I think a lot of value's on him. I think this is going to be a closer fight than a lot of people anticipate.
That'll move us into the next one where we have 17-8 Terrence McKinney, T-Rex McKinney, facing off against Kyle the Monster Nelson. Terrence McKinney has a 2-3 record in his last 5 fights. Well, 3-2 in the UFC, but in his last 5 listed fights, he did lose a grappling match in 2024. So technically 3-2 in the UFC in his last 5. Facing off against Kyle the Monster Nelson. He is 4-1 in his last 5. Coming off of a decision victory against Matt Frivola, which I don't remember who we picked to win that fight. But I do remember notating that Kyle Nelson looked like a volunteer firefighter, only to find out that he is, in fact, a volunteer firefighter. So
Facts.
that's cool. Shout out to the volunteer firefighters out there in the world. Shout out Darren Miller, my dad's friend. He wrote a song called Volunteer Fireman. I'll have to see if I can find that one day and play it for the pod. But anyways, Kyle the Monster Nelson 4-1 in his last 5. Give me him. I think he controls this fight, and I think he wins this fight by decision.
Yeah, I remember like it was yesterday when Kyle Nelson fought Steamroller Frivola, and I don't even know if we said it on the podcast, but I remember messaging Kron and tweeting it. Kyle Nelson looks like a firefighter, and Kron was like, "Well, he is a firefighter." I said, "No way," and he in fact is a Canadian firefighter, which I thought was quite humorous indeed. I think he's a well-rounded guy. I don't think I picked him to beat Steamroller, and he wins the fight everywhere. He's had a decently long UFC career, beating some decent guys like Steamroller Frivola. Bill Algeo is a respectable name, and this is all pretty recently as well. Some of the other guys he's beaten aren't that great. He lost to Jai Herbert, he lost to Billy Q, but I think he's only gotten better, winning 4 of his last 5. And T-Rex, you already know what you're going to get from him. He's kind of like the Jameis Winston of fighting. He's going to beat guys he's not supposed to beat. And whenever he loses, because he's so entertaining, the UFC's going to feed him. They're going to feed him some frauds. But at the same time, now that I look through these names, other than Faris Ziam in his second UFC fight, don't know how he won that. That's kind of what the UFC's been doing with him. They give him a decently talented guy like Drew Dober. They feed him Eric Gonzalez. He loses to Sadikov and Bonfim. They give him Brendan Moreau, a guy that fights out of Calvin Cater's gym, Mike Breeden, back-to-back. Beats him in 80 seconds, 20 seconds for Brendan Moreau. I mean, you get the picture here, man. This guy just beats jobbers. I don't think Kyle Nelson's a jobber. And the last really good fighter that Terrence McKinney beat was Faris Ziam back in 2022. I'm not going to say Kyle Nelson's a fraud or a jobber if he loses this fight, because Terrence McKinney, he does have about 180 seconds of great cardio, but Kyle Nelson's going to outlast him, and he's going to use his firefighter endurance to dig deep, and I think he's going to get a second round finish here in this one, just like he did with Matt Frivola. Give me Kyle Nelson by second round KO.
It's a good point, though, it brought up. Kyle Nelson did finish Frivola, but somehow the fight continued, and he won by decision. But
Indeed.
anyways, wee woo. We have a fight that will end in suspicious fashion alert, because we have 9-0-1 Mansour Abdul Malik facing off against Yusri Belgaroui. Mr. Yusri is a 6'6" Holland man facing off against Abdul Mansour Malik. He's 1-0 in the UFC. He beat and knocked out Azamat Bakoyev by punches in round 3 in his UFC debut. This guy's an absolute tank of a man. Facing his opponent, Mr. Abdul Malik, a significant size advantage for his opponent. Mansour Abdul Malik, as I previously mentioned, seems to have fights that end in very weird fashion, like Cody Brundage. I think that this is going to be a probable war here, but I'm going to take his opponent here. I'm not going to sit here and bother to pronounce his name again, but give me the other dude by knockout, round 2.
Yeah. This is the most interesting fight of the night to me. Could be fight of the night here. These are two of the. I think these guys are both ranked level at middleweight at least. I think Yusri Belagari, specifically, is a guy who's gonna fight for the belt. I think it's gonna be sooner rather than later. He trains with Alex Poton Pereira, Cesar Almeida. He also is a Glory kickboxing, somewhat of a legend. He lost both of his fights to Adesanya, close fights. He lost both. I think he might have fought Poatan 3 times, but I know he lost his fights to Poatan as well. Very good fighter. And he didn't initially get in off the Contender Series because he kept eye poking his opponent, but he got the finish there. And he kept training, kept working, and he got called for a short notice fight against Azamat Bakov, which is, to the people here on Knockout Analysis, a very impressive win. Azamat Bakov, I think, is a high level fighter who is potentially even ranked level as well, who has a layup against Trayshawn Gore, who's somehow still in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But Yusri Belagari, he's massive. 6'6", as Kron mentioned. He has great takedown defense. He has great hands. Mansour Abdul Malik is one of my favorite prospects from 2024, Dana White's Contender Series. And he's fought a bunch of lower level guys. You know, the Dusko wins aging decently, but come on, man. Antonio Trocoli, Nick Klein, Cody Brundage, whatever. I mean, I think he won that fight. I don't give a shit about that, but these aren't big names. I think that he's been brought up slowly, and this is kind of like he's getting thrown in front of a train here against a very layered striker who can defend grappling, who's been training that with Mr. Poatan Pereira and Glover Teixeira in Connecticut. I think Belagari is going to knock him out. I think a lot of people are going to turn on Mansour Abdul Malik and say he's a fraud, which I don't think is true. I don't think it's fair. I think Mansour will bounce back from this, and he will turn into a great fighter here in the middleweight division. But give me Yusri on Saturday night, and I'm gonna be in agreement with Kron here. I'm gonna say second round knockout is very available for our long friend from the Netherlands, the Dutch young man.
He is 1-2 in Glory kickboxing against Pereira.
You got to win against Poatan. Shit.
Yeah, a unanimous decision in Copenhagen. That'll move us directly into the next one, where we will have, starting to heat up a little bit, we got Julian Erosa facing off against Larian Douglas. This is a 31-12 Julian Erosa, coming off of a loss in his last fight to Melquizael Costa. Not a bad loss at all. An absolute war. Yes, it was a war. Darren Elkins was a win. Christian Rodriguez a win. Ricardo Ramos a win. Then he lost again to Fernando Padilla. But yes, the Melquizael Costa fight was a war. That's a great loss to have, as Melquizael Costa is absolutely shooting up the rankings at a ridiculous pace.
Mm-hmm.
He's facing off against Larian Douglas, the gunslinger, 13-5 record. He is coming off of a 36-second first-round knockout in the Contender Series. Before that, he was a belt holder in LFA. Looks like he may have even been a 2-division belt holder, possibly. Either that or 2-time, and they just unified the belt or whatever it may have been. 4-1 in the LFA promotion. He has 7 wins by knockout, 2 by submissions. So we have a pretty good matchup here in terms of finishes. In 31 wins, Erosa has 26 finishes. So I do see a finish in this fight. Juicy J, Julian Erosa, I'm going to go ahead and take him. Give me third round submission.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm going to disagree with Kron, but at the same time, I'm going to give him his respect because he did pick fight of the night. Juicy J versus Melquizael Costa. And yeah, that was a badass pull that I didn't expect coming, but it was a war. an absolute banger. And Julian Erosa is another one of those guys. Like, he's not a journeyman. He's above that. He's beaten very decent fighters. C-Rod, legends like Darren Elkins, like Kron said. Hakeem Dawodu, Charles Jourdain, who's a guy who's, I think, is very close to fighting for the rankings at bantamweight. I think he has a fight against Matrix Phillips here pretty soon. And he also subbed Sean Woodson for one of Sean Woodson's 2 losses. I mean, this guy can beat anybody on any given night. But I will say, blue chip alert. Larian Douglas, yeah, 13-5, whatever. I don't care about the 5 losses. There's a very good friend of the channel named Tracy Reeder who has 5 losses, who's hitting his prime right now. And I think he's potentially going to be fighting here in September or August for a USC contract. Larian Douglas, he has won his last 5 by KO. This guy has anvils for hands, right? He beat Javier Reyes by KO for an LFA title, a guy who just recently went out there and knocked out Douglas Silva de Andrade, a UFC veteran. Elijah Johns, that was a great fight. And just go watch. You can go find it on Twitter right now. Or you can probably go find it on YouTube as well. Cam Teague versus Larian Douglas, one of the best highlights of the season. I think this guy is a complete fighter. He's an elite counterpuncher. And even if he loses the first round, you can never count him out because he, like Peter Yan, he's downloading the data. He's figuring out where your tendencies are, and he's going to counter you based on those. And like I said, he has anvils for hands, like CP does it. They're both from Brazil. When he hits people, they don't fucking move. This is what Larian Douglas does. I don't think that Julian Erosa has the greatest chin. 8 knockout losses. I think this is way too much for Julian. I think this is a big step up for Larian, but I think he's ready for it. And I think this could propel him to a ranked fight sooner rather than later. Give me Larian Douglas by first round KO.
That'll move us into the next one, where we will see Michael Chiesa in his retirement bout facing off against 16-10 Nico Price. Nico Price is a fan favorite, I guess. Nico the Hybrid Price is 1-4 in his last 5 matchups in the UFC. He was knocked out by Robbie Lawler. He unanimously defeated Alex Morano. He was unanimously defeated himself. He was submitted by Jacoby Smith, and he was knocked out standing by Nikolay Veretennikov in his last fight, for which we both picked him to win. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, this is his most winnable chance at a fight right now, facing off against a very old Michael Chiesa and his 14-7 UFC record. However, he is seeming to retire at the top right now because he's on a 3-fight win streak. So take that for what you will, but everyone knows when it's their time, and Chiesa thinks it's his time, win or lose. So Michael, the Maverick Chiesa, give me Nico Price to win this fight, and I think he does it by split decision.
Yeah. Nico Price, I have received rumors, word you could even say, that he is also going to be retiring after this fight. And I think that's a great decision for him. And his record isn't really going to do him justice, but he went to war, man, with a lot of guys, especially like, Vicente Luque back in the day. He knocked out James Vick, who doesn't have the greatest of chins. Vincent Luque. Shout out Max Holloway. But Robbie Lawler, he knocked out Nico Price when he was 41 years old in his retirement fight with a uppercut in the clinch. It was like BSD versus Beneil Dariush, to put a more recent spin on it. Yeah, man, I'm not really buying it. Alex Morano was really fat in that fight. Like, I just don't see a fight for Nico that he can win at this point. Like, yeah, he hung in there with Jacoby Smith Looked decent for a few minutes. Don't think you won a minute of that fight, but he looked competent against one of the best welterweight prospects that we've seen in a minute.
Gave him
But
some hands.
he did. He did land a few hooks. But, getting KO'd by Nikolay Veretennikov in under 120 seconds, that's real tough. That's a real tough scene, especially, less than 2 months ago, probably about 6 weeks ago. I think that Nico is going to be the first guy. I can't pick him again. I swear I cannot pick him again after that fight. I think Nico is going to get knocked out. He's going to be the first knockout victim from Michael Chiesa in Michael Chiesa's career. He has 0 knockouts, Michael Chiesa does. But give me Michael Chiesa by knockout one way or another. I don't think this fight's going to go very far. I think it ends in the first. Maybe Michael Chiesa gets a club and sub. This is another layup for him. He's going to end his career on a 4-fight win streak. I would love it if the hybrid Price was able to go out there and get the win, but after getting disrespected and mooked by Nikolay Veretennikov, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in him to do that.
That'll move us into the next one, where we have Alexa Grasso, the third ranked fighter, facing off against Maycee Barber, the 5th ranked fighter in the women's flyweight division. This is a very interesting women's matchup to put on a card like this. Usually we would see this on a numbered card, but the decision merchant Alexa Grasso, she is 2-2-1 in her last 5 fights. She fought Shevchenko to a draw. She lost to Shevchenko, and then she lost to Natalia Silva. So this is a very interesting matchup. Former title holder Alexa Grasso out of Mexico. Again, she's facing off against the American Maycee Barber. And, obviously we have the controversial Erin Blanchfield fight where she never made it to the scales. 10-2 record for Maycee Barber. In the last fights that she's fought, she's 5-0. She's essentially another decision merchant with a couple more knockouts. I am not going to enjoy this fight. I don't usually enjoy women's fights. Don't plan on starting now. But if I had to pick, I'll pick Maycee Barber based off of pure momentum alone. So give me Maycee Barber here to win this fight by very boring, ugly, unanimous decision. Send them all to the fucking apex.
Yeah, I remember exactly where I was when I watched Mateusz Gamrot versus Ludovic Klein, the co-main event to Maycee Barber, Erin Blanchfield. I was at my cousin's house finishing that fight. It wasn't super entertaining. Mostly, cousin and I were just looking through basketball cards. And I look up at the screen and, Maycee Barber, I guess, had some sort of health issue and couldn't even make it to the cage. She has had weight issues ever since she got her boob job, per sources. And once you start focusing on cosmetics over your skill as a fighter, I think your career goes on a downhill climb. Karine Silva, I just look at these names. Amanda Ribas is probably her best win out of everybody. This is a rematch. And I think once you're at the top of WMMA and you're just focusing on training and not all these other aspects like cosmetics or, for lack of a better term, that I just said, a boob job, you're going to be there for a while. I think Alexa Grasso is going to win another decision. I think this is going to be a very grapple-heavy fight. I think that they may even get booed in Seattle. Yeah, it's higher level stuff. You could have made this a 3-round fight on the second fight of a pay-per-view. But, nobody wants to see it. Alexa Grasso, her last 2 losses are against the champ and the next title challenger. Who the hell has Boob Job Barber beat? Give me Alexa Grasso by decision.
That'll move us into the next one. The pinnacle of the evening. We have fourth ranked Israel Adesanya facing off against 14th ranked Joe Bodybags Pyfer. Joe Bodybags Pyfer is probably the only person from Philadelphia that I can stand. He fights out of there. I don't think he's from there, but I'm pretty sure he fights out of there. Anyways, fuck Philly while we're here. Joe Pyfer is 3-0 in his last 3 fights. Knocked out Marc-Andre Barriault. Could have knocked out Kevin Gastelum, but fucking knocked him down 20 times. Submitted Magomedov in his last fight for a very, very solid win for him. He's the 14th ranked contender facing off against the former title holder, multiple time title challenger, the last style bender, Israel Adesanya. He is off 3 straight losses in a row. He's 1-4 in his last 5. But here's the order of his losses. Gets knocked out by Pereira. Knocks out Pereira. Loses to Sean Strickland in an embarrassing performance. He got dominated and owned. Gets choked out by Dricus du Plessis. And gets knocked out in 30 seconds in round number 2 by Nasruddin Imavov. Before that, obviously we all know he lost the title to Jan Blachowicz. He beat Kelvin Gastelum for the title, Robert Whittaker for the title, Yoel Romero, Paulo Costa, Marvin Vettori, Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, all those guys. He's a UFC Hall of Famer, UFC legend. Very, very good fighter. No one's disputing that fact. But here's my issue with Israel Adesanya. He's getting older, his chin's getting weaker. Joe Pyfer has dynamite in his gloves. If he hits you, he's hitting you with power. He doesn't throw setup shots. He throws, I'm knocking you out. He'll tell you, and in his interviews, if you listen to him, I want to knock you out. I'm throwing every punch to knock you out. Here's the 2 fight paths I see. Glass chin Adesanya gets his chin cracked by Pyfer in the first round, and that's it. Or what I just said comes back to bite Joe Pyfer, and Israel Adesanya wins a very long 5-round decision. I'm leaning more towards glass chin Adesanya gets cracked. So I'm going to take Joe Pyfer to win this fight by first round knockout.
Honestly, everything that Kron said, I pretty much completely agree with. A lot of individuals are going to point to the Jack Hermanson fight for Joe Pyfer. But that fight was 3 fights ago and over 2 years ago. I don't put much more merit on it than that. He's had 2 finishes. Kelvin Gastelum I don't think he can be knocked the fuck out by anybody. And that's just who Kelvin is, if you've ever watched him fight. Stylebender. Probably the second best, maybe to some people even the best middleweight of all time. Kickboxing legend. MMA legend. Pretty much just repeating Kron here, But he got folded by Nasruddin Imavov against the cage 30 seconds into the round. He got rocked and then subbed by Dricus du Plessis in a fight that I think that Stylebender was winning. Can he avoid that for 5 rounds? I think, yeah, body bags may gas out. But I think no matter what, I think 50% of his power can rock and finish Adesanya. It's just very hard for me to pick a guy with no chin. Like Beneil Dariush, he's a more talented fighter than a guy like BSD. His chin wasn't there. He got knocked out with an uppercut in the clinch. Israel Adesanya, more talented fighter than DDP, or even an Imavov. His chin isn't there anymore. He sacrificed everything to beat Alex Pereira, and I think that's enough for him. I think it's enough for him to have ended his career on in the moment. Obviously, we couldn't have foretold how it could have turned out, but I think Joe Pyfer's going to finish this, and I think he's going to finish it early. It's interesting that he's an underdog. He's like a plus 120, plus 130 on this. I think, considering how the fight could go, exactly as Kron said, it's either a first, potentially a second round knockout, or Adesanya kicks him at range, punches him at range, and has a Volkanovski level people forget performance and gets the decision. But I'm with Kron here, man. I think it's going to be a first round knockout. I think Joe Pyfer has absolute anvils for hands. And the UFC, the reason they gave him this fight, a lot of people say, oh, why are people getting these fights? You know, you could say that about the Josh Hokett fight. They want American superstars and they want American champions. And I think Joe Pyfer, I think he fits the mold. Whenever he hits people, they don't move. And him knocking out Adesanya, it does a lot for the American fan base. Give me Joe Pyfer by first round KO.
That'll move us to the end of this. Again, this has been the UFC Fight Night in Seattle, Washington. A few big things happening in this one. Obviously, we have the return of Adesanya. Michael Chiesa retirement confirmed. Possibly Nico Price retirement as well. I'm sure we're going to see some kind of giant retirement video for Michael Chiesa, as he's probably going to make his way into the booth. And we still haven't seen one for Stipe Miocic, so fuck the UFC for that one. But that'll move us to the end of the episode. Be sure to check this out on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, share to your friends, hit the bell so you know when we post again. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Watch out for the deer.
Keep your stick on the ice.